Sitting here this morning at a place called the Springs of Borrego, RV resort. We brought our Airstream out here yesterday afternoon, and it was about 110 degrees when we got here. Probably not the best time to come out in the desert, but gave us a great opportunity to make sure our Airstream was ready for what we want to really do with it this fall. We have a plan to take that out to Big Creek, Mississippi, and many of you know who lives in Big Creek, Mississippi. We're going to head out and see a good friend out there, probably in October, and we would love along that way if there's any of you who we end up being close to in a stop or two that maybe we could see you, and maybe we could get together and share some thoughts and share some ideas and just encourage you. That's what we would love to do more than anything, is just spend some time encouraging those of you who need it. And we'll see how that works out as we head out that way this October. So you'll get more information as we do that. I was thinking this week, I heard I can't remember who I heard say this, but I put it on my Facebook post a couple of days ago that basically says this, that life doesn't waste success on the unprepared. And that really hit me pretty hard to think about that, and that's true, that there have been times when you and I may have encountered some success that we didn't deserve, that we didn't earn, and it doesn't last when that happens. Another truth is that life doesn't give you what you want. Life gives you exactly what you deserve. It's completely dependent upon what you're giving, what you're putting into it, that determines what you're going to get out of it. So when you get something without giving, sometimes that's a temporary situation, unless you're able to catch up and become that kind of person that just got the things that you think you always wanted. But it reminds me of a story in the Bible, and I'm going to share it with you here in the next 5 minutes if I can. But Jesus is walking along the shore. This is the first time that he ever got a following. And he's walking along the shore, and he sees these guys. And the Bible says that he saw them, and they were mending their nets. And come to find out, these guys are fishermen, and they've been fishing all night long. They didn't catch anything. And probably kind of an embarrassing situation when you have someone coming up and start talking to you about your night, kind of like a car salesman on the 20th of the month that doesn't have any cars out. Are you really a car salesman at that point? And I've been there before. Let me tell you, I've had some tough months like that as a car salesman in the past. So I know the frustration that these guys are probably feeling. And so for Jesus to come up to these guys and he says, you know what? Why don't you guys go back out there? And this time, put your nets in a little bit deeper water. And it's like, I relate that to being in the car business when someone comes up to you and starts giving you pointers who've never done it before and who think they know what they're talking about. And it's frustrating. But in that time, rabbis were pretty respected men. And so Peter, the leader of the group there, says, okay, we'll do that. We'll go back out, and because you say so, we'll put our nets out in deeper water. And I don't know if Peter was doing that as a sign of respect, or if Peter was doing that by saying, all right, this is on you. All right, we did this all night. We're the experts. And we'll try it your way, all right, preacher man. Maybe that's what he's thinking. That's what I would have been thinking. So they go out, and you probably know the result. They put their nets out, and they start pulling in fish, and they start pulling in so many fish that their nets start breaking, and their boats start sinking. I mean, talk about success, right? They couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle the success that they got. And so as they're pulling it in, you can imagine what these guys are feeling. Just this amazement, this, I can't believe this is happening. and they're pulling it in, and they're about to have a catastrophe in the middle of their success. And Peter just gets overwhelmed and says to Jesus, I'm going to follow you now. And they leave all the fish, and they leave their nets, and they leave their boats, and they follow Jesus. And I've read this story and taught this story as a pastor many times. But what's always, and then there's lots of applications, right? And it always is the application of maybe you need to leave your life and follow Jesus. And maybe you do. Maybe you do. What I get out of this story is a little bit simpler because my mind thinks differently sometimes. And I wonder, every time I read this story, I wonder, why does the writer tell us about the nets? Why does he say that they're mending their nets at the beginning, and then their nets break at the end? And every time I read that, I think this one thought always pops in my head. These guys weren't ready for success. They weren't ready for success. And I wonder how that applies to my life, and I wonder how that applies to your life. Their vision was way too small. They didn't think they could ever catch this amount of fish, and so they didn't have the kind of nets that could handle that kind of weight. They weren't as prepared as they thought they were. I mean, they thought they were experts, but then when they get what they thought they always wanted, they couldn't handle it. And then the last thing I think that I learned from this lesson is sometimes the most important thing is who you're with and not what you're doing. So I want to ask you these three questions today, and you think about it and share this with some people, because it's good stuff. This is good. Number one, most of the time our vision's way too small for our lives. And we need to think bigger. Number two, most of the time I think we're way underprepared for the kind of success that wants to come in our lives. And number three, and this is probably the most important, most of the time, we could upgrade the kind of people we're hanging around. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your character, your income, your vision, your motivation, all that. So, 3 simple things this morning I want you to think about today and hopefully apply to your life. And I'd love to spend some more time talking to you about this in person. But, yeah. Those are thoughts from Borrego Springs this morning. Have a great day today.